Hello everyone, this is me Debasis for Revsportz. I am with none other than former Australian cricketer and coach, in fact World Cup winning cricketer Geoff Marsh. And what would be interesting is to see Mitch Marsh playing against India at the Optus Stadium in the first test match of the Border Gavaskar Trophy, which gets underway from November 22nd. Geoff, obviously welcome to Revsportz. First time I would like to ask you, what does it take for an opener to be successful in bouncy tracks here in Perth?
Yeah, well, I think you listen to cricket all the time, and especially from countries like India and Pakistan and Sri Lanka, and when they come here, they talk about the bounce of the whacker wicket and the pace of the whacker wicket. I've always found the whacker. I mean, I've grown up on it, but it's once you get in at the whacker, probably one of the best wickets in the world to bat on. And I think most world-class players like Kohli and Virat Kohli, they would say exactly the same. I think the thing about the whacker is you can allow a lot more balls to go. You play on length, and you know that it's always going to be the same pace. The pace is very consistent. There is a little bit of extra bounce. But once you've been out there for a little while, you always talk about, facing the first 20 balls, you get used to the pace, you get used to the bounce, and once you get through that period, it becomes a very, very good wicket to bat on. And I think, we've seen over the years, a lot of great players come here and play extremely well, and it's just a matter of sort of getting used to that extra little bit of pace.
Yeah, and obviously, what is the challenge for an opener to be successful? Obviously, with Rohit Sharma likely to miss out in that first test match, India might be sending Yashasvi Jaiswal and KL Rahul to open the batting for India. So what is the challenge of batting here in Perth? And obviously, and the test match will be at the Optus Stadium. Do you reckon that the conditions will be the same or rather similar what it was in playing at Wacker?
Oh, no doubt. The wicket at the stadium is very similar, if not better now than what it was at the Wacker. And, the thing about scoring runs in, at the stadium here in Perth now, or the Wacker, is not to overthink it. A lot of players come here and they talk a lot about bounce and pace, but that bounce and pace is beautiful to face. And, I think a lot of cricketers, most cricketers now have travelled the world, and, they play so much cricket that, they don't, I think the great players don't overthink conditions. They go out there, they play each ball on its merits, and they work out, they're smart about the way they go about it.
Yeah, and talking about your sons, obviously both Mitch and Sean has played for Australia, and Mitch is all set to play in that first test against India with Cameron Green missing out. How excited are you about watching your son play in a home test match?
Yeah, it's always great to to have your own kids play a test match, and to play in front of your home crowd, and especially for him it's an exciting time. What makes it great now is that you're playing against the best two teams in the world are playing, and to play against India at the Wacker, it's a great moment for every Australian cricketer, not for Mitch. I know that our players are really looking forward to it, as well as what India. We've seen them play so well here before, and they're a very, very good cricket side with some very experienced cricketers. And I think for Mitch it's just be a test match, but playing in front of your own crowd is special.
I heard a story about Mitch that whenever he goes out of the house, he always calls his dad. Be it to the training ground or be it anywhere, he makes it a point to call you. Can you just share the story?
Well, he does, but he doesn't always do it. Now that he's married, he probably rings his wife, probably more times than he rings me. But yeah, no, we always have. He's been very lucky to be coached by some very good coaches, and so as far as a dad goes, I sort of just let them do the business now and look after him. And he's had some very good coaches along the way. Justin Langer, McDonald. So he's had some good grounding with coaching, and I chime in if I think that I can help. But for me, I'm just a dad, and that's the way it'll always be. And I'll be a dad that and Mitch will treat me like a dad and say, "What do you know, Dad?" Like the game's moved on, and those sort of things. But we talk about cricket, but his coaches and mentors do a great job.
Who was more talented? Was it Sean or Mitch?
Well, I think they're both talented, but talented, probably different players. I still think that Sean was probably one of the best players to watch, and still is. When you watch him play now in these veteran tournaments around the world, he's a beautiful player to watch. And he just got struck with injury at the wrong time. And Mitch, well, he's just he's an all-rounder that goes out there, likes to hit the ball and get himself going that way. So I never got injured once in my whole career, but my boys seem to get injured more than anybody. But hopefully Mitch is coming good now, we just have the normal father-son relationship.
Yeah, and Geoff, talking about that World Cup win in India, means how important was it for Australian cricket, especially coming after a time when Australia had a lean period and after that loss in the Ashes?
Yeah, I think Australian cricket really found itself again when Bobby Simpson took over as coach of Australia, and Alan Border became captain of Australia. They had a magnificent working relationship. Alan Border was, a fantastic leader, led from the front. This is the way that I do it, and you guys have got to follow. He worked really hard at his game. He spent a lot of time, talking to us about the game, but he had high expectations of what we had to do. And I think it was the combination of both Border and Bobby Simpson, along with some very talented players that were coming through the system, and we gelled together. And the Indian World Cup in '87 was a really special time. I don't think any cricket team has worked as hard leading up to that World Cup, and I think when we got to India, we prided ourselves on being the best fielding side in the competition, wanted to be the best fielding side in the competition, and believed that our fielding could win us the World Cup. And in hindsight of that World Cup, under coach Bobby Simpson, I believe that our fielding played a massive role, along with some very good batting and bowling performances.
Yeah, and Geoff, obviously, talking about that Alan Border's role, how did it transform the Australian side?
Well, I think he just, as I said before, Alan was one of those guys that just led by example. We all know what a great cricketer he was. He wanted everyone to be toughen up. They wanted everyone to work really hard on the skills of the game, but more importantly, he wanted us young players to be smart about what we do and train ourselves in becoming good cricketers, but knowing our game well enough that when we walk over the white line, that you're out there yourself. You've got to make your own decisions under pressure, and they're the things that we as young cricketers at that stage learnt from Alan Border, and I think we did it really well. When you think players like David Boone and the Wall brothers and Dean Jones, so many great players, Mark Taylor, all that, it really started the whole the period of Australian cricket right till now. Basically started in '87 under Alan Border and Bobby Simpson.
Geoff, coming back to playing against India, what are your memories of playing against India? And also, not only winning that World Cup that you said in 1987, but you also played your last Test match against India, in the last Test series against India. And also, can you talk us about that tied Test match in Chennai?
Yeah. Well, I played my first Test match against India, my last Test match against India.
Yes.
Playing against India in India when we go back into the 80s, it was hard work. It was really tough, but it was always a great challenge. We spent a lot of time in India. We used to play in between test matches. We'd play a couple of practice games against the state sides in India, and they would always be played out in a country area. And then we'd come back into the cities and play the test matches. But we knew that we were always going to be up. Spin, we all know that when you go to India, you've got to play well against spin. And we spent a lot of time talking about it and preparing ourselves to play on spin, but there's nothing like when you get out in the middle and how you deal with it and deal, against people like Kapil Dev. What a beautiful bowler, and his record on Indian wickets where, they're not like Australian wickets, they're harder, but his ability to bowl well and the Indian spinners just were relentless. And we always were told, never plant your foot, but when you're used to doing that and then you go to India and you try not to do it, it was difficult. But we played some good cricket over there. We learnt as young cricketers so much from our tours to India, in how to play against spin, play under tough conditions, like hot, and the World Cup in '87 was, we were not favourites when we went there, but we just knew under Alan Border and Bobby Simpson how hard we'd worked to. The end result was a long way away. We had to do a lot of little things each game before we got to the final. And I remember Bobby Simpson. We'd be at a hotel and he'd say, right, everyone out fielding, we'd be out in the gardens of the hotel doing a fielding session, because we just wanted to be that little bit extra and do that little bit extra than every other side in the World Cup at that time. When we played well, we celebrated a win and playing well, but when we didn't, we weren't playing well, we'd sit down and analyse areas where we had to improve, and we'd go away and we'd have those extra sessions, whether it be the batters or the bowlers, whether it be our fielding or whether it was about the way we think about the game and prepare. We left no stone unturned on that tour to win that World Cup.
And your memories of the tight test match in Chennai?
Tight test match. Well, I remember the very last ball. I didn't know whether we won, lost or draw, but it was just the moment was just so exciting. And, it was a tough test match, like Dean Jones going through what he went through, and it was hot. So it was a real tough game of test cricket. And to finish in a tie was, something that, we can talk about for the rest of our life. It was just a great game of cricket. And, the thing that we remember about that game is when we sat down after it, we didn't win the game, we didn't lose the game, we tied the game, but how exhausted we were because it was tough conditions. And in India in the 80s, if you to beat India, you had to play exceptionally well, but to tie a game at the start of the tour like that was a real, we took a lot out of that game as far as we're getting better and we can play on Indian conditions, and we're getting better at it. And we took that into the rest of the series, and look, it was tough, but it's always in our a tied test match in India is always be a special moment for us.
Geoff, what was more special for you? To win the World Cup as a player or to win it as a coach?
Well, I think it's funny, people always ask me that. When you're a player, you've got a lot more control of what's happening in the game. When you're fielding, you can always, every ball, you can try to make a difference because you're out in the field. It could be that, that one run you save, or, that brilliant catch you take, or, not allowing any runs through, keeping energy up in the field. As a coach, you sit there and you hope that, when I coached Australia, I had a terrific side. All I had to do was make sure that they'd worked hard and prepared themselves well and go out on the field. It's hard, but I think being a player is, it's nothing like playing for your country, and 11 blokes you're out there in battle in India in super hot and humid conditions in Chennai, and they are the toughest moments you'll have in cricket.
Geoff, obviously, my few more minutes. What do you reckon? Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma, they have not been in the greatest of form, but what Virat has done against Australia is incredible. 8 centuries, average of more than 50, and have scored more than 2,000 runs. And so, what do you think? Means what, according to you, Virat means will it be his series this time round? Because he's not in the best of form going into the series.
No, I think if you look at both sides at the moment, they're probably travelling the same. There's a lot of Australian players who've probably just been down on a little bit of form in Shield cricket, but they will rise. Virat Kohli is a fantastic player. Rohit Sharma, fantastic player. When it counts out in the middle of the heated battle, it doesn't matter what you've done before, it's the moment. And those guys have the ability, Steve Smith the same, and all great players will rise for this series. And I think that it'll be a huge battle. We will try to keep Kohli down in Australia, and we'll try to get Rohit Sharma early to put pressure on the rest of the batters. But we know that history tells us, and their performances and records will tell us that it's going to be hard work. And for Australia to play well against India, we need to be, like all our disciplines have got to be on top.
What is that one thing that impresses you the most about Virat, the batter?
For me, I just love the way he plays the game. He is so focused and he's in the battle. He's got that killer instinct, like that real, whatever you do, you're going to have to work more than 100% to get my wicket. I just love the way that he goes about his cricket. He's a beautiful player. I'm looking forward. I hope Virat makes some runs, but I hope Australia win the series.
And last couple of questions. Geoff, do you reckon that India will miss the absence of someone like a Cheteshwar Pujara and Ajinkya Rahane, who were part of that 2 test series win in 2018, 19 and 21, 22?
Yeah, well, I think I think both sides will have players out at some stage in this series. Cameron Green will be out for Australia, and we've seen over the last couple of years, he's been playing better and better, and had a really good tour of New Zealand. I think both sides will miss players, but the players coming in are also very good cricketers, and you're giving someone else that opportunity, and you hope that they grab that opportunity when they get it. But we've got 2 good countries. We've got a lot of very talented cricketers, and it'll be a very tough test series.
Your prediction, lastly.
I'm picking Australia to win. I think it's going to be a great series. I mean, the last series here, Australia and India have had some fantastic series over the last, 20 years, and or even before that. It'll be really tough, but I think it'll be the side that just gets momentum going, and if they can hold that momentum, whoever does that will win the series.
Your take? Australia winning it?
I think Australia. Well, I've got my son playing. I've got to back Australia in Australia. But I think it's going to be a great series.
Yeah. So that was Geoff Marsh exclusive for Revsportz. To keep following this Revsportz to get all the updates from the coverage throughout the Border Gavaskar Trophy. This is me, Debasis, signing out. Keep watching.